Welcome everybody to this exciting webinar that's been organized by the Swiss Business Council Environmental Group and FARNIC. It's titled Hotels Optimizing Energy Consumption During Low Occupancy, a case study. My name is Tanzid Alam. I'm the Managing Director of Earth Matters Consulting, and I'm a member of the Environment Group of the Swiss Business Council. So we have helped to pull this event together. We have a really exciting results in the study and to share with you all today. There's a few speakers, there'll be a presentation, but we'll also have plenty of time for questions and answers with you in the audience. So the way for you to ask your questions would be in the chat box. If you just type your question there, and we will try and get to as many as we possibly can. It's always good to have more questions than less. So without further ado, if we could go to the next slide, please, Nadia. I just want to introduce everyone to who the speakers are. Great, so we have obviously myself, we have Marcus Oberlin, who's the CEO of FARNIC. We have Nadia Ibrahim, who's the head of consultancy at FARNIC. Bias Baby, who's the senior energy consultant from FARNIC. And Matteo Boffa, who's the head of the environmental group of the Swiss Business Council and the president of the Swiss Business Council Abu Dhabi.
A very good morning, everybody, from my side also. In FARNIC, we have a clear vision. We want to be the leading provider of sustainability and technology-driven facility management services throughout the UAE. We have two brands in the market. We have FARNIC, which is our big brand for the business-to-business solution, and we also have a brand called Hitches and Glitches, which is our brand for residential solutions. We provide in the UAE maintenance services, cleaning services, security services, and also sustainability consultancy services. We are very proud of our big database of top-end customers. We manage the Burj Khalifa, we manage and clean the Dubai Mall. We are responsible for the Dubai fountains. We have cleaners and maintenance teams in Dubai Airport, Abu Dhabi Airport, and we also manage the Yas Marina in Abu Dhabi. We are active in all the 7 Emirates with our facility management services, but with our consultancy services, we also provide services throughout the GCC. In total, we have a workforce of more than 8,000 employees coming from more than 50 countries. So we are on the consultancy side for the hotels. We are exclusive partner of Green Globe International, and we already have certified more than 100 hotels here in the region. We also developed a tool called hoteloptimizer.com that is also in the market for more than 10 years, where we help hotels to benchmark their energy figures, water consumption figures, and waste figures to see where they stand against their competitors and where they have saving potential that they can use to identify areas where they can reduce their carbon footprint and save costs. We have a team, very qualified engineers and consultants that help us and help the hotels to do a very good analysis and good audits. And with that, I'm looking forward now to this very interesting study that our team has done. So with that, over to you and back to you, Tanzid.
Great, thank you. Now over to, thank you very much, Marcus, for that introduction to FARNIC. So now over to Nadia to start talking about the study that FARNIC has conducted. Nadia?
Yes. Thank you, Tanzid, for the warm introduction, and good morning to you all. The hospitality industry is going through one of the hardest faced in recent times. The COVID-19 issue has affected every sector across the globe, the hospitality industry being hardest hit. Hotels started experiencing a low occupancy trend from March 2020, which reached an all-time low by May 2020. Market experts have predicted that this low occupancy trends would continue for some time due to different reasons, mainly being the airlines still not fully operational, the lower oil prices in the GCC market has affected the economy, the manpower downsize, and budget constraints has reduced the corporate travel. Customer confidence is low in terms of health and safety concerns, reduced customer budget, and Expo 2020 postponed. So it is considered that this trend would remain for some more time until and unless the industry picks up by the end of 2020. So what is the occupancy forecast that is being projected for this year? There are various hospitality market research organizations has done studies and research to identify the future trends in occupancy pickup. The graph displayed was taken from a study published by HVS Middle East on May 7, 2020. According to this forecast, the average occupancy for selected GCC countries is predicted to be 40%. So this slight improvement in the occupancy trend is based on the assumption that the oil prices would improve, there would be an availability of COVID vaccine, airlines opening to more sectors, as well as the increase in domestic travel. So market experts and travel industry experts predict that there will be a new hotel business, there is a new trend in the hotel business that would happen with advanced sanitization and hygiene activities. So it is well known that occupancy has an impact on utility consumption, as more people in the building requires more energy. But however, there are few studies that has established appropriate baselines and identifying how much does occupancy affect consumption patterns, including energy, water, and waste. As hotel operators, you might have also thought of these questions, especially during this critical times. Our study is a step towards establishing a correlation between variations in occupancy and its influence on energy consumption, and how optimization of energy can be achieved during low occupancy periods. This slide gives a quick overview on the study objectives. Analyze degree of correlation between low occupancy and utility consumption, establish an existing performance-based load and identify what are the improvement opportunities, predict consumption versus achievable savings, identify opportunities for utility reductions, and to recommend best practices that can help hotels to adapt operating efficiency during low occupancy periods. 25 hotels with almost similar climatic conditions and profile were utilized for the study. We consider only 4 to 5 star rated hotels to ensure that there will be a uniformity in the operational aspects and energy intensity. Both city and resorts hotel were part of the study group. The timeline considered for this study was a month-to-month comparison between March, April, and May 2019 versus 2020, because these were the 3 months that were impacted due to COVID-19, and by comparing the performance differences between these 3 months, a marked difference can be demonstrated in the consumption and formulate a performance trend. The source of this study was the Hotel Optimizer tool, whereby hotels enter energy, water, materials on a monthly basis and get analyzed on the consumption and variation patterns for emissions, wastewater, and waste. All of the 25 hotels that were utilized for the study were part of the Hotel Optimizer tool. This tool is tailor-made to suit the profile of different hotels, varying in type of air conditioning, pool time, irrigation requirements, and analyzes the utility performance in relation to temperature, utilization, and occupancy aspect. So the analysis methodology used a concept of apple-to-apple comparison. That means similar parameters of one year were compared to another year with a correlation establishing between the utilization, the occupancy, and the consumption patterns. Now, with this, I conclude my session on the introduction to the study. Now, I would like to hand over the session to Mr. Bias, our senior energy consultant, who would be speaking about the findings of the study and the analysis patterns that were used to formulate energy savings pattern and consumption patterns. Over to you, Bias.
Thank you, Nadia and Tansit, for the introduction. Good morning to all. Myself, Bias, I will be presenting before you the observations and findings from the study pertaining to utility consumption. For the utility performance, three parameters were evaluated to identify the trends with reduced occupancy. The selected parameters are electricity consumption of the facility, chilled water consumption of the facility, and the potable water consumption of the facility. The performance of these three parameters are analyzed in relation with facility breakdown as shown in the slide. The study also considered KPIs that were utilized to analyze electricity, cooling, and water consumption patterns listed in the slide. The first parameter that is being analyzed is the water consumption patterns in the hotels. The water consumption for a hotel facility is dependent on both occupancy related factors and non-occupancy related factors like irrigation, pool, fountains, etc. In addition, hotels with water-cooled chiller system consume a considerable amount of water for its cooling tower applications. For the water consumption trends, all these factors were considered, and the observed trend as per the graphs indicate that during the low occupancy period, hotels were able to reduce their water consumption by around 43%, corresponding to an occupancy reduction of around 62%. However, few hotels with large irrigated areas, large pool sizes, and water-cooled chiller systems could not reduce much as their major water load was not only dependent on this occupancy. The reductions achieved was in accordance with the predicted values from our analysis. This shows that all facilities have reduced their water consumption in accordance with reducing occupancy trends, which is a very positive trend exhibited by the hotels in this region. Before we go into the electricity consumption trends, let us understand the general electricity and cooling breakdown patterns of a hotel. The graph in the left-hand side represents a breakdown of facilities' electricity consumption. This breakdown is based on the analysis patterns from various hotels' energy audits we have conducted, as well as from the Hotel Optimizer data analysis process. From the breakdown chart, it is clear that around 70% of facilities' electrical load is dependent on occupancy. The graph on the right-hand side is a representation of cooling load of the facility, which shows that around 66% of the cooling load has a dependency on occupancy. These graphs indicate that a considerable amount of facilities' energy consumption is correlated with occupancy trends. Okay. Here we analyze the occupancy trends and electricity consumption patterns between 2018 versus 2019 as compared to 2020. In the last 2 years, occupancy remained almost stable with an average of around 70%, except for the 2 months of Ramadan. It was observed that when the hotel occupancy remains above 50%, electricity consumption exhibited a proper correlation with occupancy variation. But if the occupancy goes below 50%, as displayed by the third yellow column, the energy reduction does not happen to an expected reduction levels, since the hotels in this region does not have the experience of operating at very low occupancy levels. In the study, there were few hotels who operates on low occupancy levels in some months due to their weather conditions or travel, seasonal market variations, etc. We could see that these hotels were able to manage their energy consumption during the COVID period because they already have experience in low occupancy conditions. So, how much reduction could have been achieved by the hotels during this low period? The next slides we will be discussing about the same. Okay. The table shows the performance levels of hotels that is participated in the study. In the initial months, when the occupancy started to drop, most hotels were not able to reduce their consumption, which is normal. But in the month of May, when majority of hotels, which means around approximately 50% of hotels, still couldn't reduce their energy consumption to the required levels, even after having an experience of operating with low occupancy levels. Now, the right side graph displays the calculated base load energy consumption for hotels corresponding to various occupancy variation. Then achieved energy reduction by participated hotels. Then the third line shows the predicted energy consumption for the various occupancy reduction levels. Now we'll go deep into that graph. Now the solid downward trending straight line, it represents the reduction in energy consumption corresponding to the various occupancy levels, provided that hotels are not making any energy efficiency adjustments. With this operating pattern, hotels has a base load consumption of nearly around 56% with 0% occupancy. Now the zigzag yellow dotted lines, it shows the average reduction achieved by the hotels during the study period. It should be noted that for an average 90 to 100% occupancy reduction, energy consumption is reduced by around 60%. This includes hotels which reduced their energy consumption from 27%, and some hotels were able to reach up to 80%, corresponding to the occupancy reduction of 90 to 100% occupancy variation. Now, the third yellow line shows the possible energy reduction that can be achieved with the variable level of occupancy reductions with effective energy management steps. This shows that hotels can achieve a reduction up to 73% with 100% reduction in occupancy. This analyzes the variation between 2019 versus 2020 for March to May period. The average occupancy reduction that was observed for the 3-month study period was around 63% from 2019, and the electricity consumption reduced by around 36%. Using standard energy modeling and hotel optimizer trend analysis, it was identified that for low occupancy period in 2020, hotels could have reduced their energy consumption by around 48% by making adjustments in existing systems, and they could have generated a savings up to around 2.4 million for this last 3 months period, which could have reduced the CO2 emission of around 2,400 tons. Next slide, please. Different market researchers are estimating different forecasts on occupancy pickup for hotels during the coming months. So based on this, we are predicting a possible scenario for energy consumption up to April 2021, considering there might be an occupancy pickup or occupancy drop. With occupancy predicted at an average of around 40%, and applying energy efficiency process can reduce the consumption by around 7,500 megawatt hours from the existing trend. This can help hotels to achieve good savings, especially in the time of financial constraints. The expected cost reduction was estimated for around 3.4 million dirhams for the coming 1 year if the trend continues like this. And the corresponding CO2 reduction possible will be around 3,300 tons. This is an occupancy prediction and energy consumption trend predicted for occupancy if the occupancy remains around 30% level. With this, we are expecting an 11,500 megawatt hours reduction, and corresponding CO2 reduction could be around 5,000 tons. The weak correlation found from the study indicate that it is necessary to improve energy management when occupancy rate is low. So few recommended actions and best practices implemented by the best performing hotels are listed in the slide. First one is the best performing hotels established an effective energy management plan for the low occupancy periods, which includes continuous monitoring of systems to track the energy consumption and standards to be followed during this low occupancy period. As part of this plan, stock of major energy consuming systems and building automation assets are collected, basically to understand the patterns and its effects on building environment. As per this, equipments are segregated based on their controls required. So the systems which need local or manual controls are adjusted one by one at the site, and the others are operated at the lowest energy consuming regions using the centralized controlling station. In addition, controls are adjusted frequently based on the changing environment, so as the required standard are not diluted. Sample of few actions are as per the energy management plans are listed here in the slide. So the major focus was given on chillers and ventilation systems. All these best performing hotels had a strategic room deployment plan which focused in utilizing the best possible sequence of FAHU and exhaust fans in operation and reducing the operating floors to cut down the corridor energy consumption. Coming to the fresh air system, fresh air supply to the rooms were reduced as per the standards. In the unoccupied rooms, the fresh air supplied was reduced to almost around 50% compared to the occupancy duration. In addition, fresh air supply temperatures were adjusted based on the ambient dew point temperature to reduce the moisture addition to the rooms. Then the effective chiller plant or chiller plant manager. So chiller efficiency decreased in many hotels during this low occupancy period. This need fine-tuning of chiller plant manager or a detailed system-specific study of chiller to understand the gaps to improve the energy efficiency. Now, low occupancy and deep low occupancy set points. Guest room temperatures were increased than the normal unoccupied period temperatures with a close check on room relative humidity levels to avoid the mold growth in the rooms. Required adjustments are made as per the room humidity levels. In addition, hotels implemented a demand-based chilled water set points for daytime and nighttime, then effective utilization of cooling towers with ambient bed bulb temperatures. A better utilization of VSDs were done. Common area set points, like in areas where electronic circuits and human interventions are not present, there the temperatures were raised to around 28 to 30 degrees Celsius. In addition to this, many more effective energy management steps are implemented in each sections of the hotel facility, with few of them are listed here. Yeah, if you would like to get more tips on this energy saving measures for hotels, Farna has developed an energy handbook for hotels, which is available for free download from Hotel Optimizer website. This would be covering the steps to be followed for each subsystems of the hotel facility. Thank you all. Over to you, Nadia.
Thank you, Bias. That was a very informative and interesting session. We have seen that hotels have a big potential to reduce energy consumption to improve their cost savings. Alongside with energy, there is another parameter that has an important influence in a hotel's environmental performance, the waste generation. It's a well-known fact that waste is a factor that is very much related to occupancy. The more guests, the more waste is generated. Especially the waste that is coming from the guest room and F&B activities contribute to a major share of a hotel's waste. So for the waste performance, we have tried to establish a correlation between the occupancy and the waste, taking into consideration the factors like guest night, general waste, food waste, recyclables, and the waste cost. So how is the waste performance of a hotel measured? There is an international KPI that is established to calculate the waste performance of a hotel. It is called kilogram per guest night. As per the international average, a hotel guest generates about 1 kilogram of waste per guest night. However, during the study, on our analysis for the Dubai hotels, we have found that for a Dubai hotels, the average kg per guest night ranges from 1 to 34, which is very, very high above the internationally accepted figures. On the right-hand side, the graph compares the waste performance during 2018 to 2019. The kilogram per guest night for this year's was compared to the kilogram per guest night for the months of March, April, and May. And we have found that there is a very high kg per or waste generation during these lockdown periods, which should not actually happen because, as to mentioned before, there is an expectation that the guest waste, less guest, the less waste that comes out. This validates the fact that during this low occupancy period, the waste reduction in the hotels did not happen as much as that was expected. So the next slide's details on the same. In this graph, there is a comparison for waste of 2019, 2020 for the 3 months of March, April, and May. So we could see from the graph that the average occupancy reduction is 70% and the waste reduction happened by 40%. For this comparison, we took only general waste and food waste reduction was taken into account because for most of the hotels, the recycling was very, very low or almost nil, and other types of waste was much not generated. An interesting fact to notice in this that in this 40% reduction, about 70% has happened for food waste, since for many of the hotels, the F&B activities were very low or practically closed. This indicates that irrespective of less or no waste coming from guest rooms and F&B activities, still some amount of base load of waste is generated even in extremely low occupancy periods. So what constitutes this waste load waste generation? Numerous factors might have influenced the waste generation during these periods. However, for this 3-month period, on analysis on the Hotel Optimizer study hotels, we have listed out some factors that might have created the base load. The first and foremost factor is the staff activities. Almost most of the hotels had 30 to 60% of staff working, so there might be some amount of waste that is generated from the back office activities. Plus, many of the hotels have staff staying there as accommodation, So the waste that is generated from all of these staff apartments might have contributed. The second and most interesting fact to note is that the waste collection services. Usually here in Dubai or almost in most of the countries, the hotels does not get directly the kilogram of waste that is generated. Rather than it is calculated by number of skips into number of times that is collected. So it should be noted that in the low occupancy periods, the skips might be empty, half empty, or rarely full, but the waste contractor would have continued their services by picking all the skips. And when they give the quantities of the waste, it might be the full quantities. So this shows that during this low occupancy period, there was a lack of monitoring from the hotel side to see actually how much waste was being generated and the correct collection process was being followed. Food waste might have been another reason because, as mentioned before, 30 to 60% of the hotel staff were still continuing to work, and the catering services might have been provided from internally. Additionally, some of the hotels might have done outside catering, which have also contributed to this waste load. This lockdown was very unexpected, and as a hotel operator, you might have kept stocks that can continue up to maybe a 6 months period, including perishable foods and other types of food. So maybe during this lockdown period, these type of waste items or this stock clearance might have happened that might have contributed to waste generation. So this shows that hotels during low occupancy period has to have a proper waste management plan to see which are the areas that might lead to waste generation and how that can be controlled. In the coming months, we would be undertaking more analysis from the hotel optimizer to formulate a general performance pattern with different occupancy trends. So, if you are the chief engineer of a hotel, what will be the next steps that you would be taking to get your hotel operate in the most sustainable and cost-efficient way to manage your budget during low occupancy periods? It should be noted that studies around the world has shown that energy cost estimates to about 6% of the total annual budget of a hotel. But the most important point is that this is the second cost after budgetary requirements for manpower. This means managing your utility consumption is a very, very important factor for hotels to manage their cost. 3 key approaches can help to improve their utility performance. This include monitoring, assessments, and maintenance. Implementing any one of these simple tactics will surely reduce your operating expenses by some degree, where you will notice the real savings when you apply all of these factors together. Here, we present 2 solutions by Farnett that is being offered to hotels in reducing the utility consumptions as well as achieving savings to improve their sustainability. You cannot manage what you cannot measure. Monitoring and reporting on your energy use is undoubtedly the most important way to reduce energy. Until you know where you actually use energy, you're not really going to know where the biggest savings on this can be made. So put a monitoring plan in place and start capturing some baseline figures is the first step in this direction. For years, Pharmac has been supporting hotels to monitor, measure, and manage the utility waste performance through the Hotel Optimizer tool. Alongside data monitoring and analysis, a team of energy experts and waste experts identify issues that is specific to each hotel and offer customized solutions. We have seen that hotels on average were able to reduce from 5 to 10% of their consumption within the initial years of subscribing. We understand that each hotel has its unique qualities and therefore opportunities for additional savings. The best way to make sure you do what's right for your property is to work with trained experts in building management. A third-party energy audit is an excellent method to identify what are the gaps in the existing systems and what are the improvements that can be done in the coming months. Our accredited energy auditors has been conducting energy audits in hospitality industry, and our energy consultant work alongside with the hotels to optimize their energy. This year, we have launched a new services in energy audit the remote energy auditing, considering the fact that travels have been limited, access restrictions has been imposed due to safety reasons. So what is a remote audit? Remote audit is basically a virtual audit whereby your entire facility is being audited without the auditor actually visiting to the site. As from the slides, you can see that the remote energy auditing is a fast picking trend in many parts of the world, and it has many benefits that is more, especially the cost benefit, that is more suited for hotels at this time of critical times. For more information, you can log on to www.hoteloptimizer.com. While the negative consequences of the crisis is clear, it should be noted that such extreme times of uncertainty can also be windows of opportunity. If efficient utility management strategies are implemented, it can be ensured that during the low occupancy periods, hotels can reduce consumption and achieve cost savings, especially in this economic climate where managing cost is important. Hotels can utilize the consumption savings. If you reduce your energy, you achieve the savings, and this savings can be diverted to reduce your room rates, thus gaining competitive advantage over the market. With this, we conclude our presentation on the study and the findings. Thank you all for attending. Now over to you, Tanseed and Matteo, for the Q&A sessions. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Nadia. Matteo, I think I'll invite you to do the closing remarks after the Q&A, if that's okay, and then you can close the webinar. So it's good to have you back online. So this is extremely interesting, contemporary, new information that Farnec has created, and through its Hotel Optimizer tool. I think there's a lot of information in there that shows, how much hotels could be, the potential that they're missing out on right now during low occupancy to actually reduce their utility bills. So some of those figures were quite stark. So thank you very much for putting all of that together and sharing it with the audience. I have a few questions to start off with, and I'm seeing the audience is beginning to type questions into the chat box as well, which I very much welcome from anyone who's in the audience. But my first question would be, Nadia, perhaps it's you or Marcus to answer this, I'm not sure. How did you define the best performer and underperformer from the study?
Tanzir, I think it would be better to direct it to Bias, who has done the energy analysis in detail. Bias, over to you. Can you please answer this question?
Yeah. The best performers and underperformers are defined based on our energy analysis from the data collected from all these hotels. So actually, we have predicted what would be the energy consumption for this at various occupancy levels, and it is being compared with each hotels. So, for example, if a particular hotel, they are consuming some amount of energy, and their occupancy is reduced by a particular level, and how much they have achieved during that period, which will be compared with our predicted values. If it is coming in line with the predicted values, then we are listed them as best performers, and if it is deviating from those values, then we listed them as underperformers. So we had around nearly 50% of hotels were performing well during the month of May, and 50% was on the underperforming side. But in the initial month, in the March month, underperformers were nearly around, best performing hotels were only around 8 out of 25, which was increased to 17 by the month of May.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, Bias. Actually, related to occupancy, we have a question here from Wakar Ahmed for you, Bias. Based on the low occupancy and the hot, humid conditions of the UAE, how has the infiltration load reached to 34% in your study in comparison to the fresh air load, which is 7% only?
No, infiltration load is through the walls, windows, and all. And the fresh air load, which is around 7%, that is, we are having exhaust fans will be there with heat wheels, which will be reducing the temperature of the incoming air, and the set points will be coming around 24 degrees Celsius or 20 to 24 degrees Celsius based on the humidity levels in the ambient conditions. So the 34% depends on the window and wall areas. The other one is based on the total amount of fresh air being supplied. That comes around, the air changes, we can say around, it will be coming around 0.5. So that's a reasonable estimation, actually.
Right. Thank you, BS, for clarifying that. So the next question I have for you is, this is again for you, BS, is in your presentation, it was mentioned that even at low occupancy, chillers were operating at lower efficiency. Can you explain a bit more about what's the reason and what we can do about that?
Yeah, when the chillers were operating at lower occupancy periods, the facility load was also on the lower side. So which resulted in operating the chillers at reduced part load conditions. So that time, with proper chiller plant manager controls, we could have operated the individual compressor circuits in better efficiency regions. But what we observed in the underperforming hotels was that the controls were not proper. So they need to consult the chiller supplier to make the adjustments in the controls.
Okay, great. Thank you. See, other people are typing, so I'll wait for that to come through. So BS and the team, this is a question from Sovik Banerjee. Is the hotel trend shown only for city hotels or resorts? And secondly, why does the trend only include occupancy as a variable parameter and not the other variables like ambient temperature conditions?
We have considered city hotels and resorts, and the variable considered was only occupancy, and the comparison was done from month to month. So the ambient temperatures will keep same. It won't vary. So we were comparing only from March to March 2019 consumption to March 2019 consumption with the occupancy variations. Similarly for April and May.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to move on to the next question. Yeah, very interesting, Nadia. In your final remarks, you were talking about remote energy audits. Do you think the remote energy audits will replace physical audits in the future?
Bias, would you like to answer?
Yeah, I will answer. The idea here is to reduce the cost involved with the field visits and measurements at the site. Audit is nothing but collecting data pertaining to each and every equipment in the facility. So relevant information will be collected using the web-based tool in remote energy audits, and analysis will be done at offsite. So hence, hereby using proper methodical remote audit for a hotels can achieve up to 70 to 75% requirements for ASHA level 2 audits. Since so basically aims at reducing the audit cost that helps facility to do their audits in the low income period.
Okay, great, thank you. Another question from, sorry, I'm trying to read the name, apologies, I can't read it. If some of the facilities do not have any measuring devices in place, how does Farnet collect the data remotely?
Yes, can you hear?
Can you repeat that question once again?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's about if some facilities do not have any measuring devices in place, how does Farnet collect the data remotely?
Yeah, the thing is that basically for any hotels, the major loads will be chillers, ventilation systems, and all. So all these things will be connected to BMS systems. So we can collect all this data from the BMS systems. The next thing will be over the Q&A sessions with the hotel employees. And our tool, which we will be sending, will be like collecting the informations like temperatures profiling, pressure profiling for each and every equipment. So which can come up to almost around 70 to 80% of the required data for a detailed energy audit. Again, it depends on the site energy meter accuracies.
Okay, but can hotels, for example, install sub-meters as well? Would that help?
Sub-meters, yeah, sub-meter. If sub-metering is there, it will be more beneficial for us to do this remote energy audit.
Okay, great, thank you. So now, I wanted to ask you, if hotels promote their efforts to be more sustainable to their customers, do you think it would positively impact the occupancy rate?
I'll answer the question. In today's market, there is a way of change when guests approach attracting guests to enhance your commitment to the environment. As a company that was involved in certifying hotels for sustainability, we could see that there is a general trend worldwide in guests considering sustainability or green hotels as one of the criteria they select hotels. So if you're a hotel that offers good facility and shows and is environmentally sustainable, sure, that would be a big factor in attracting guests, especially after COVID, which has raised environmental concerns around the world. People would like to go and stay in hotels that does not create much harm on the environment. So I think being sustainable is a very good opportunity for hotels to attract more guests, thereby gaining a competitive advantage. I hope that have answered the question.
I think that was very clear. Thank you, Nadia. Actually, and while you're here, Nadia, there's a few questions around waste. So I'll start off with the first one from the audience, from Nahid Sami. He's mentioned that per guest, some 7 to 8 kilograms of waste is being generated. What measures can a guest take to reduce or minimize their generation of waste?
That is a very interesting question, because usually it is considered that even though 70 or 80% of the waste that comes out from a hotel is guest generated, there is a consumption that it is difficult to control the guest. But by communicating well, that is the most important part. If you operate a hotel in a sustainable way, if you communicate well to the guest that you are environmentally committed, for sure, the guest would be very much willing to participate in your waste programs. Providing segregation bins in the guest room, keeping communications in the guest room about waste reduction can surely engage guests. Plus, there are some sort of facility changes that hotels need to be done. For example, one example I can give you. If the PET bottles or the small plastic bottles in the guest rooms are avoided and kept with alternate solutions like water filters or glass bottles, a major amount of waste that is coming out from a guest room can be avoided. And believe me, these days the guests are very happy to support hotels in their sustainability efforts if it is communicated well. I hope that answers your question, Ms. Nahid.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Nadia. And actually, there's another question on waste from Atul Kumar. I'm just reading it out straight. What could be a solution to weighing the waste generated accurately in-house instead of relying on the waste management company for the data based on the skips?
Yes, a very, very interesting question. You require two things to do this process. One, you should have a weighing scale in your hotel. Second, you should have a committed staff who would be weighing the weight. In my audits, I have seen many hotels have kept a weighing scale whereby whatever waste is coming out from the guest rooms or any part of the hotel, it is being weighed before they are putting it into the skips that is provided by the contractor. See, you cannot accept 100% accuracy unless and until the weighing trucks are fitted with sensors, which I hope would be coming soon. But having your own weighing the waste, you can check if there is a disparity between your calculated waste and the waste data that is provided by the contractor. So I hope this answers your question, Atul.
Great. Thank you, Nadia. Very clear recommendations there on weighing the waste in-house. Now, we're getting quite a few questions around the occupancy and energy consumption. So I'd like to put this over. Next one to you, Bias, from Karen Agar. If the hotels are 100% closed, what should be the energy consumption in percentage? Is it 25% compared with last year?
Yeah.
Any thoughts, Bias?
Yeah. As per our prediction, using the tool, it is coming exactly around 27%. And from the hotels, we have seen variations from 85% to means hotels have cut down their energy consumption by almost around 85%. And some hotels, they were able to reduce by 27%. And as per our prediction, it is 27%. So if you dilute your required room standards, then you can achieve more. But that's not recommendable.
Okay. Wow, I'm getting more questions for you, Bias. Okay, so you're on the spotlight, which is good. I think you've got a lot of
Yes.
interest in what you're saying. So this one's from Vishnu Ambika. Hi, during the section, it was mentioned that the set points of thermostats were set to 28 to 30 degrees. Will the high temperatures help the humidity control? And if humidity is high, the assets like wooden doors, frames will be affected.
Yeah, it's not recommended. Actually, it was not suggested for guest rooms or other areas. It is suggested for areas like electrical rooms where human interventions are not there, or the areas where electronic circuits are not there. So, where under this humidity parameter is not critical, this recommendation was suggested for such areas actually.
Okay, thank you. I have another question here about BMS data from Arif Muhammad. If in new hotels previous year's BMS data is not available, then how can you compare the trends? Then secondly, is there regional and hotel size trends that are available to compare new hotels?
Actually, we are not using previous year's BMS data for any analysis. Here for this analysis, we have considered the data from Hotel Optimizer tool. And if you're talking about remote audit, in remote audit from BMS, we'll be collecting the present data and the historical data like electricity bills, chilled water bills, and water consumption details will be collected for the historical data analysis. Other than that, everything will be from the ongoing meter readings or ongoing BMS readings.
Tanzit, I would like to add a point on the second part of the question. Mr. Arif has asked, is there regional and hotel size wise trends are available to compare new hotels? We have a benchmarking system in hotels whereby hotels with similar criteria are compared to each other to find out the performance variation. Say, for example, if you are a new hotel and based on the size of the rooms, your operational aspects, your assets, your irrigation area, all your parameters, there can be hotels that is almost similar to your hotel, and their trends can be identified to compare how much you can perform well or how much you can improve. So this is basically the process of benchmarking, which we do it in Hotel Optimizer. Now, benchmarking is a very good tool for you to understand, am I performing well, or is there more chance for me to perform well? I hope this clears your questions.
Very clear, Nadia. Thank you for your answer there. So I'd like to move on to the next point here, which is you started hinting at this around international certification, Nadia, in one of your other answers. So what role does international certification and group level corporate policies have in ensuring sustainability and improved performance?
Okay, to certification is a great tool in terms of two benefits. I can directly say, because we have a large number of hotels representing as attendees. The first benefit, it gives a brand image to you, a validity that you are qualified to operate or you are qualified to be sustainable. Secondly, the certification tools just not limit to getting a certificate. It includes a big process change. For example, Farnak has been certifying hotels for the International Green Globe for almost 20 years. So what we can see that through this process, the hotels are introduced to the concept of sustainability, and there is an evolution of hotels into this sustainability aspect. And the more sustainable you are, the more comfortable and happy your guests are. Now, corporate policies. Yes, corporate policy is a very important tool, especially with the big hotel operators having their operations in and around the world. Having a sustainability policy strongly on a corporate side can help the hotels in the individual countries to adopt sustainability. For example, I'll give an example. Hilton hotels have a very strong policy on plastic reduction, which we see that in any Hilton hotels around the world, this is a policy that is being imposed. So I could say that the certification is a very great tool for you to have to get your guests as well as your employees to get pitched into operating sustainably.
If I could ask a follow-up question on that one, Nadia, of your best performers in your study, how many of those were certified then, according to Green Globe, or had corporate policies?
I can't, out of 25, I can say maybe around out of 13, maybe I can say around 5. I need to check actually the exact numbers, but I can say 5 to 6 hotels are either certified or, it should be noted that all of these hotels are subscribed to the or part of the hotel optimizer. So I would like to go back to one of the slides which I presented, that monitoring, yes, certification, monitoring and assessment. So certification is a tool that does both monitoring and assessment. So I could say that hotels who have a sort of monitoring or an assessment process with them has shown improvement in their performances in terms of consumption reductions as well as in terms of sustainability.
Great. Thank you again for being clear about that. So we're beginning to run out of time, so I have time for maybe one more question before opening it out to the final remarks from Matteo. Obviously now it's a pretty unique time with his very low occupancy levels in hotels, which are impacting their revenues. How can you convince a hotel to make these investments to improve their performance when their revenues are currently so impacted by low occupancy?
Okay. The recommendations or the proposals what we are suggesting through this presentation was not something which involves huge investments. It was like tweaking and adjustments in the existing system. In addition to that, the lowest cost one, that remote energy audit kind of one, that is going to be with less investment and a better understanding of the system. And for the hotel optimizer analysis, it's again the continuous monitoring of the system, which is also another low cost proposal actually. And the savings what we are observed in the previous hotels was more than the investment cost actually.
Right. So the return on investment is very.
Yeah, the return on investment will be better.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'd say also, I mean, I imagine now is a good time to actually start refurbishing existing properties to make sure that they're prepared for, when things do start picking up again as well. Then this might be a good time to make those tweaks that you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. Look, I think we're running out of time now, so I wanted to just say thank you very much to you, Nadia and Bias and Marcus, for the very interesting information and presentation. If others do have further questions, you can see there's an email address that you could email them to. Obviously, I imagine this presentation will be made available to people as well. Nadia, maybe you
yes,
can.
Sure, it will be made available, yes.
Might be very useful for people to have this information. And I just wanted to say, I think it's always useful to see what could be done from sustainability efforts, because during this time of lockdown, you'd imagine that energy consumption should be low, but I guess these facilities still need to be kept running at a basic level. But it shows that there's still some optimization that could be done to reduce consumption of energy, water, and waste production. So thank you for sharing some positive recommendations on what hotels could do right now. And now I'd like to pass on to Matteo Boffa, who's the chair of the Environment Committee of the Swiss Business Council. Matteo, over to you for some final remarks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tanzid, Nadia, and Bias. I think it was a very, very productive and interesting presentation. I will just spend a few words regarding the Swiss Business Council and the Swiss Business Council Environmental Group. So the SBC is an organization that in Dubai was founded in 1996 and in Abu Dhabi in the year 2000. Our main goal is to help companies, individual and organization in the UAE and in Switzerland to create opportunity, business and social event for our members. We can count around 300 members so far. We are considered one of the most successful business platform in the UAE. Regarding the environmental group, is one of the three main pillars of the SBC. We have the financial group, where most of the Swiss banks are part of it, the health group, and the environmental group. So the Swiss Business Council intends to be present and active on the scene of the environment in the UAE. To this end, in a jointly effort with the Swiss Embassy and the Swiss Hub Middle East, and also the EPFL in Middle East, it has created the environmental group. The SBC Environmental Group includes a number of organizations and member companies that belong to the SBC, that have the interest or competence or technology in environmental issues. It is open to the partners of this organization in the UAE and in Switzerland. And this, I think, this event with Farnec is a demonstration of the powerfulness connection that we have with our members. Our mission and vision is basically to raising awareness, building bridges, and connecting people. So again, thank you so much for everybody that attended this webinar. We will have more events. We had events in the past, and we will continue to raise awareness in this major field that is the environment and the sustainability. Congratulations to Farnec for the amazing job, and I hope this will lead to opportunity for hotel industry and also for Farnec itself. And also very thanks to Marcus, the CEO of Farnec, to organize this webinar with us, Swiss Business Council.
We are thankful. We would like to take this opportunity to thank Swiss Business Council to bring up such a relevant topic in these critical times. And thank you, Tanzeed, for the being a great moderator. Thank you all for attending.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you.